Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Anjali Malhotra, MD, co-founder, IMARHKMI certified sex therapist, AASECT sexual and mental health specialist, relationship and couple therapy specialist, New York, United States. You are watching our official channel, IMARHKMI. On this channel, we discuss topics related to human psychology, mental health, relationships and sexuality based on scientific evidence and established medical research. If you would like to watch informative and professional educational content of this kind, please subscribe to our channel, like this video and share it with others. If you would like to contact us, you may do so through our website or Facebook page using the links provided in the video description. In today's video, we will discuss the fundamental principles of human sexuality. Because without understanding these foundational concepts, it is difficult to properly understand modern sexology or gender-related topics. Today's discussion will focus on the following areas: basics of human sexuality, sex versus gender orientation versus identity, biological sex gender roles, sexual development. All of the information presented here is based on contemporary scientific research and the guidelines of international medical institutions, including the World Health Organization and the American Psychiatric Association. Basics of human sexuality. Human sexuality is a complex and multidimensional system that involves biological, psychological, hormonal, and social factors. In general public understanding, sexuality is often limited to the relationship between a man and a woman. However, according to modern medical science, human sexuality also includes an individual's identity, emotions, patterns of attraction, behavior, and social roles. According to the World Health Organization, sexuality is a fundamental aspect of human personality that involves the body, mind, emotions, relationships, and social influences. The development of human sexuality begins before birth, continues throughout childhood, undergoes transformation during puberty, and progresses through various stages across the lifespan. In modern psychology and sexology, several fundamental terms must be understood separately in order to properly understand human sexuality, including sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender roles, sexual development. When these terms are used interchangeably, misunderstandings often arise. Therefore, it is important to clearly distinguish between them. Sex versus gender. In medical and psychological sciences, sex and gender are two distinct concepts. Sex refers to the biological characteristics of an individual, specifically the physical attributes based on which a person is classified as male or female. These characteristics include chromosomes, hormones, reproductive organs. Secondary sexual characteristic. Gender, on the other hand, refers to an individual's psychological and social identity, how a person internally experiences themselves, and how society perceives their role. According to the American Psychiatric Association, gender identity represents an individual's internal sense of self, which in some cases may differ from their biological sex. For this reason, modern science treats sex and gender as separate constructs. Understanding this distinction is essential because it forms a fundamental basis for understanding human identity. Orientation versus identity. Sexual orientation and identity are also two distinct concepts. Sexual orientation refers to the direction of a person's emotional or physical attraction. This attraction may be toward men, toward women, toward both, or toward neither. Identity refers to how a person understands themselves and the terms they use to describe their own identity. According to the American Psychiatric Association, orientation and identity are not always identical. In some cases, an individual's pattern of attraction may differ from the identity they use to describe themselves. For this reason, contemporary psychology considers orientation and identity as separate constructs. Biological sex. Biological sex is typically determined at birth based on physical anatomy. It includes chromosomes, hormones, internal reproductive organs, external reproductive organs in most individuals. XX chromosomes are associated with female biological sex. Y chromosomes are associated with male biological sex. However, medical science recognizes that natural biological variations may occur. According to the World Health Organization, some individuals may experience variations in genetic or hormonal development, resulting in physical characteristics that differ from typical male or female patterns. These conditions are medically recognized and reflect the biological complexity of human development. Understanding biological sex is important because it provides the biological framework from which gender and orientation are later examined. Gender roles. Gender roles refer to the social expectations that societies assign to men and women. For example, what roles men are expected to perform, what roles women are expected to perform, appropriate clothing, expected behavior, social responsibilities. These roles vary across cultures and society. According to the World Health Organization, gender roles are not purely biological. They are largely shaped by social and cultural influences. This is why expectations for men and women differ across countries and societies. Gender roles may be associated with biological sex, but they are not always identical. Modern psychology recognizes that human personality and behavior are shaped not only by biological sex, but also by social environment and cultural context. Sexual development. Sexual development is a long-term process that begins before birth and continues throughout the lifespan. During childhood, physical differences are relatively minimal. However, brain and hormonal development continues to progress. During puberty, hormonal levels increase, resulting in physical changes and the emergence of sexual attraction. According to the American Psychiatric Association, sexual development involves several factors, including genetics, hormones, brain development, family environment, social influence, personal experience. Every individual develops differently, which is why human behaviors and emotional experiences may vary. According to the World Health Organization, healthy development requires a balanced integration of physical, psychological, and social dimensions. When human sexuality is examined from a scientific perspective, it becomes clear that it is not a simple topic, but rather a complex system involving the body, mind, society, and life experiences. With this foundational understanding, we are better prepared to explore more advanced topics in human sexuality. Ye kame ek khor bai. Or facially of sexual orientation research throughout human history. Attempts have been made to understand sexual orientation, but systematic scientific research on this subject formally began in the 20th century. In earlier periods, human behavior was largely interpreted through moral or social frameworks. In the modern era, however, psychology and medical science began to examine this topic through empirical research and clinical observation. The primary objective of sexual orientation research has been to understand why individuals experience attraction, when such patterns of attraction develop, and whether they are primarily innate or influenced by environmental factors. Over time, several researchers and theoretical frameworks contributed to this field, with particularly influential perspectives emerging from the work of Sigmund Freud, Alfred Kinsey, and later developments within modern psychiatry. Freud theories at the beginning of the 20th century. One of the most influential figures in understanding human sexual behavior was Sigmund Freud. Freud introduced the theory of psychoanalysis, proposing that many human motivations and desires operate at the unconscious level. According to Freud, sexual development begins in early childhood, and childhood experiences can significantly influence personality development and patterns of attraction. Freud also suggested that human sexual orientation is not always rigid or singular, but may involve a range of psychological potentials. He proposed that individuals may possess both masculine and feminine psychological tendencies, and that life experiences may strengthen one tendency more than the other. Importantly, Freud did not classify homosexuality simply as a disease. Instead, he viewed it as a possible variation within human psychological development, even though society at that time largely considered it abnormal. Although contemporary science does not fully accept all of Freud's theories, his work played a foundational role in shaping later psychological research, and his contributions remain historically significant. Kinsey research, another major figure in the scientific study of sexual orientation, was Alfred Kinsey. During the mid-20th century, Kinsey conducted one of the largest studies of human sexual behavior. His research involved thousands of interviews aimed at understanding how patterns of attraction develop in human populations. One of Kinsey's most influential contributions was the proposal that sexual orientation is not limited to two fixed categories. Instead, he suggested that it exists along a continuum. To illustrate this idea, he introduced what later became known as the Kinsey scale, which placed exclusive heterosexual orientation at one end and exclusive homosexual orientation at the other, with multiple gradations between the two. Kinsey's findings suggested that many individuals do not fall strictly at one extreme, but may exhibit varying degrees of attraction. This research was among the first to introduce the concept that sexual orientation may function as a spectrum, a perspective that later influenced modern psychological research. Modern psychology in contemporary psychology, sexual orientation is understood through a more comprehensive scientific framework. Modern psychological research suggests that sexual orientation is a complex phenomenon influenced by multiple interacting factors, including genetics, hormonal influences, brain development, childhood environment, social experiences. Current scientific understanding does not attribute sexual orientation to a single cause. Instead, it is considered the result of a multifactorial interaction among biological, psychological, and social processes. Within modern psychiatry, sexual orientation is therefore viewed as a component of human behavioral diversity rather than simply a pathological condition. This shift in scientific perspective later contributed to important changes in psychiatric diagnostic frameworks. DM's changes, the most widely used diagnostic reference for mental health conditions, is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, published by the American Psychiatric Association. In earlier editions of the DM's, homosexuality was listed as a mental disorder. This classification reflected both the scientific assumptions and prevailing social attitudes of that historical period. However, as research expanded, clinicians observed that many individuals with a homosexual orientation did not demonstrate signs of mental illness. Clinical studies also indicated that psychological distress experienced by some individuals was often associated with social stigma and external pressures, rather than the orientation itself. These findings led to increasing debate within the psychiatric community regarding whether it was scientifically appropriate to classify homosexuality as a disorder. Homosexuality removal from DM-77, the American Psychiatric Association made a historically significant decision. Following extensive research and professional review, homosexuality was removed from the list of mental disorders in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The primary reason for this change was that available scientific evidence did not support the conclusion that homosexuality itself constitutes a mental illness. In later XEM editions, a different concept was introduced that applied only in situations where individuals experienced significant psychological distress related to their identity. According to modern psychiatry, sexual orientation itself is not considered a disorder. However, if an individual experiences conditions such as depression, anxiety, or significant distress related to identity conflicts or social pressures, those conditions may be clinically treated. This revision is widely regarded as one of the most significant milestones in the history of sexual orientation research. Following this change, modern psychology increasingly approached human sexual behavior through a more scientific, medical, and research-based framework. Brain, hormones, and genetics. To understand human behavior, attraction, and identity, modern science does not rely solely on psychology. Contemporary research also examines the roles of the brain, hormones, and genetics. According to modern psychiatry and neuroscience, understanding sexual orientation and gender-related experiences requires an integrated examination of neurobiology, endocrinology, and genetics. International medical organizations such as the World Health Organization and the American Psychiatric Association emphasize that human behavior rarely develops from a single cause. Rather, it reflects the interaction of biological systems, brain processes, hormonal influences, and environmental experiences. For this reason, modern scientific discussions often focus on three fundamental areas: brain hormones, genetics, testosterone. Estrogen hormones play a crucial role in human physiology and development. Two of the primary sex hormones are testosterone. Testosterone is generally present in higher concentrations in males, while estrogen is typically higher in females. However, both hormones are present in all individuals to varying degrees. Research in endocrinology indicates that hormones influence not only physical development but may also affect brain development and behavioral patterns. During puberty, hormonal levels change significantly, which may lead to physical changes, emotional changes, the emergence of sexual attraction variations in behavioral patterns. Scientific research also indicates that hormonal influences may begin during the prenatal stage, meaning before birth. Hormonal exposure during fetal development may affect aspects of brain maturation. For this reason, endocrinology is considered an important field in understanding sexual development. Brain structure studies within neurobiology, researchers examine how brain structure and neurofunctioning may influence human behavior. Some scientific studies have compared certain brain regions across individuals in order to explore whether structural differences may be associated with variations in emotional processing or patterns of attraction. A number of studies have suggested that certain brain areas associated with emotion, motivation, and attraction may function differently across individuals. However, modern neuroscience emphasizes that brain structure alone does not determine human behavior. The brain is also shaped by environmental influences, life experiences, and hormonal processes. According to the American Psychiatric Association, research on the brain is ongoing, and no single simple biological formula has been identified that can fully explain sexual orientation. For this reason, brain studies are considered a potential contributing factor rather than a single definitive cause. Twin studies to explore possible genetic influences. Scientists have conducted twin studies. In such studies, researchers compare identical twins with fraternal twins. If a particular trait appears more frequently in identical twins, it may suggest a genetic component. Some studies have observed that identical twins may sometimes share similar sexual orientations, although this is not always the case. This suggests that genetics may contribute to orientation, but it does not function as the sole determining factor. Modern genetics recognizes that human behavior represents a complex trait shaped by interactions between multiple genes and environmental influences. For this reason, contemporary science does not describe sexual orientation as purely innate nor entirely learned. but rather as the result of multiple interacting factors. Prenatal hormones, the prenatal stage, meaning the developmental period before birth, is also considered significant. During this stage, the fetus's brain and body are developing rapidly, and hormones influence these processes. Some endocrinological studies suggest that variations in hormone exposure during prenatal development may influence aspects of brain development. These variations may later contribute to differences in behavior, interests, or patterns of attraction. However, modern research also emphasizes that prenatal hormones represent only one possible factor among many. According to the World Health Organization, human development typically results from the interaction of several elements, including genetics, hormones, brain development, environmental influences, social experiences, neurobiology. Neurobiology examines how the brain, nervous system, and chemical signaling processes influence human behavior. Different regions of the brain are involved in functions such as emotion, attraction, memory, and decision making. The activity of these neural systems may vary among individuals. Modern neuroscience recognizes that human behavior is influenced not only by conscious thought, but also by the underlying functioning of neural networks. For this reason, neurobiology is considered an important field in understanding human sexual behavior. Endocrinology is the scientific study of hormones and the endocrine system. Hormones are produced by glands in the body and travel through the bloodstream to influence multiple physiological processes. Examples include testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, androgens. These hormones play roles in both physical and emotional development. During puberty, the endocrine system undergoes major changes, and it is during this period that patterns of attraction and emotional interest often become more clearly expressed. For this reason, endocrinology is considered a key component in understanding sexual development. Genetics is the scientific study of genes and hereditary traits. Every individual inherits genes from their parents, and these genes influence aspects of physical structure and certain biological processes. Research indicates that complex human behaviors are not determined by a single gene, but rather by interactions among many genes combined with environmental influences. According to modern psychiatry, sexual orientation may involve genetic contributions, but this does not imply that genes alone determine human behavior. The American Psychiatric Association emphasizes that human behavior generally reflects the interaction of both biological and environmental influences. For this reason, the combined study of brain function, hormonal systems, and genetics is essential for understanding human development and behavior. Sexual orientation spectrum. Historically, sexual orientation was often understood in very simple terms. Many societies assumed that individuals were either heterosexual or homosexual with no additional variation. However, modern psychology, sexology, and scientific research have demonstrated that human attraction does not always fit into strictly binary categories. Instead, it may exist along a continuum or spectrum. According to the World Health Organization and the American Psychiatric Association, sexual orientation is a complex human characteristic that may vary across individuals. To explain this variability, modern psychology often uses the concept of the sexual orientation spectrum, meaning that attraction can occur in different degrees rather than existing in only two fixed forms. The following sections describe some of the commonly discussed patterns within this spectrum. Straight or heterosexual orientation refers to a pattern in which an individual experiences attraction toward the opposite sex. For example, men experiencing attraction toward women, women experiencing attraction toward men. This pattern is the most commonly observed orientation worldwide and is often considered socially normative in many societies. Modern psychology recognizes heterosexual orientation as one form of human development influenced by biological, hormonal, and social factors. Scientific research indicates that heterosexual orientation develops through complex interactions among multiple influences similar to other orientations. Gay or homosexual orientation refers to a pattern in which an individual experiences attraction toward people of the same sex. For example, men experiencing attraction toward men, women experiencing attraction toward women. Historically, homosexuality was often considered a pathological condition. However, following extensive research, the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from the list of mental disorders. Modern psychiatry, therefore, does not classify homosexuality itself as a mental illness, but rather recognizes it as one possible form of human sexual orientation. Research also indicates that psychological distress observed in some homosexual individuals is frequently related to social stigma, discrimination, or rejection rather than the orientation itself. Bisexual orientation refers to a pattern in which an individual may experience attraction toward both men and women. The degree of attraction may be balanced or may vary across individuals. Modern research indicates that some individuals experience relatively stable patterns of orientation across their lives, while others may experience variations over time. It is also important to distinguish between patterns of attraction and relationship choices. An individual may experience attraction toward more than one gender while maintaining a relationship with only one partner. According to the American Psychiatric Association, bisexuality is recognized as a valid orientation within the broader spectrum of human sexuality. Fluid sexuality. Modern psychology also uses the concept of fluid sexuality. The term fluid refers to the possibility that patterns of attraction may change over time, influenced by life experiences, emotional connections, or personal development. For some individuals, orientation appears stable from an early age. For others, patterns of attraction may become clearer during adolescence or early adulthood. Certain studies suggest that emotional bonding may influence patterns of attraction for some individuals, resulting in greater variability over time. According to the World Health Organization, human behavior is rarely determined by a single factor, and developmental experiences throughout life may influence individual outcomes. For this reason, modern psychology recognizes that sexuality may be more flexible in some individuals and more stable in others. Kinsey scale, one of the most well-known frameworks for understanding the sexual orientation spectrum, was proposed by Alfred Kinsey. Kinsey conducted large-scale studies involving thousands of participants and introduced what became known as the Kinsey scale. In this scale, sexual orientation is represented along a continuum from 0 to 6, 0 exclusively heterosexual, 6 exclusively homosexual. Intermediate values represent varying degrees of attraction between these two endpoints. The purpose of this scale was to demonstrate that human sexual orientation cannot always be divided into only two categories. Many individuals may fall somewhere between the extremes. The Kinsey scale played a significant role in helping modern psychology recognize that sexual orientation may exist along a spectrum. Although contemporary science now uses more complex models, Kinsey's framework remains historically influential in the study of human sexuality. According to modern psychiatry, sexual orientation develops through the interaction of multiple factors, including biological influences, psychological development, hormonal systems, brain processes, environmental context, life experiences. For this reason, the concept of the sexual orientation spectrum is used not to oversimplify human behavior, but rather to understand it in a way that more accurately reflects the complexity of human development. Lesbian full clinical discussion. After understanding the broader sexual orientation spectrum, we can examine its different components from a scientific and clinical perspective. In this section, we will discuss lesbian orientation from a clinical and psychological viewpoint. According to modern psychiatry and sexology, the term lesbian refers to a woman who experiences emotional or physical attraction toward other women. The American Psychiatric Association notes that sexual orientation may represent one aspect of human personality, and understanding it requires examining biological, psychological, and social influences together. To understand lesbian orientation more comprehensively, researchers often examine several areas, including female sexuality, relationship patterns, mental health research, attachment dynamics. Scientific research studies female sexuality. Science. Female sexuality may differ from male sexuality in certain psychological and biological dimensions. Scientific research suggests that in many women, emotional connection, affective bonding, and relational intimacy may play a particularly important role in patterns of attraction. Studies in endocrinology and neurobiology indicate that estrogen and related hormonal systems may influence emotional responsiveness and interpersonal bonding. Some research has suggested that for certain individuals, sexual attraction may be strongly associated with emotional connection and relational closeness rather than being purely physical. According to the World Health Organization, female sexuality should not be understood solely from a reproductive perspective, but also through psychological, relational, and social dimensions. Modern sexology recognizes that sexual orientation in some women may demonstrate greater variability across the lifespan, while for others it may remain relatively stable. Lesbian relationships. To understand lesbian relationships, it is important to examine principles from relationship psychology. Research suggests that emotional intimacy and relational communication often play a central role in many same-sex female relationships. Some studies have observed that communication levels between partners may be relatively high, although emotional intensity within relationships may also be strong. Relationship research indicates that challenges within these relationships are generally similar to those seen in other types of partnerships, such as misunderstanding, jealousy, dependency, trust-related difficulties. According to the American Psychiatric Association, relationship satisfaction is typically influenced more by personality characteristics, communication patterns, and emotional compatibility than by sexual orientation itself. For this reason, lesbian relationships are not regarded as a separate psychological disorder or clinical condition. Rather, they are understood within the broader principles of relationship psychology. Mental health statistics in mental health research. Some studies have observed that rates of depression or anxiety may appear higher among certain lesbian populations compared with the general population. However, modern psychiatry emphasizes that this does not imply that sexual orientation itself causes mental illness. Many researchers describe this phenomenon using the concept of minority stress, which refers to the psychological pressure experienced by individuals who belong to socially marginalized or stigmatized groups. According to the World Health Organization, experiences such as discrimination, rejection, and social stigma can significantly influence mental health outcomes. For this reason, mental health studies often distinguish between two questions: whether psychological distress arises from orientation itself or whether it results from social reactions and environmental stresses. Modern research frequently indicates that psychological distress is more strongly associated with social conditions rather than sexual orientation. Attachment patterns. Attachment theory represents an important framework within psychology, suggesting that early childhood relationships influence patterns of interpersonal connection later in life. Some research studies have found that attachment styles may affect relationship behavior regardless of sexual orientation. Attachment patterns are often described in three broad categories: secure attachment, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment. These attachment styles may occur among heterosexual, homosexual, and bisexual individuals alike. Modern psychology therefore considers attachment patterns and sexual orientation to be separate constructs. The American Psychiatric Association emphasizes that relationship behavior should be understood through multiple factors, including personality traits, upbringing, emotional development, and life experiences. For this reason, lesbian orientation is not interpreted through a single explanatory factor, but rather through a combination of psychological and developmental influences. Numerous research studies have examined lesbian orientation from biological, psychological, and social perspectives. Some studies have focused on Hormonal influences, brain structure, genetic factors, environmental experiences. The general conclusion of modern research is that no single explanation applies to all individuals. For some individuals, biological influences may play a stronger role. For others, psychological development or social experience may be more influential. According to the American Psychiatric Association, sexual orientation is best understood as a complex human trait involving multiple interacting factors. For this reason, modern psychiatry emphasizes that understanding human orientation requires integrating scientific evidence, clinical observation, research data, individual developmental differences. The purpose of a clinical discussion of lesbian orientation is not to label individuals, but rather to understand human behavior through a scientific and evidence-based framework. Lesbian psychology deep analysis. After examining lesbian orientation from a clinical perspective, we can now explore its psychological dimensions in greater depth. Modern psychology recognizes that human sexual orientation cannot be explained by a single factor. Instead, it may involve multiple influences, including childhood development, social context, emotional experiences, and stress-related processes. According to the American Psychiatric Association, human personality and behavior represent complex processes that involve both biological and psychological components. For this reason, understanding lesbian psychology often involves examining several theoretical perspectives, including childhood development, social influences, trauma-related theories, and minority stress. Childhood development forms a fundamental foundation for human personality. Psychological research suggests that experiences during childhood may influence emotional patterns, relationship styles, and the development of self-identity. Earlier theoretical models propose that early family relationships or aspects of the family environment might influence later patterns of orientation. However, modern research indicates that these factors may represent possible influences rather than definitive causes. According to the World Health Organization, human development generally involves the interaction of genetic, hormonal, and environmental influences. Some studies have explored how childhood emotional bonding, parental attachment, and early social experiences may shape aspects of personality development. However, current scientific evidence does not support the claim that any single childhood experience inevitably produces a specific sexual orientation. Modern psychology therefore approaches this topic cautiously, recognizing that human developmental pathways vary significantly between individuals. Social factors refer to the influences that society, culture, and environment may have on an individual's thinking, identity, and behavior. Different societies maintain different expectations regarding gender roles, relationships, and social conduct. Some individuals experience stronger social pressures, while others may grow up in more permissive environments. Modern psychology suggests that the social environment can influence how individuals express or understand their identity. But sexual orientation itself is not generally viewed as solely the result of social conditions. The American Psychiatric Association emphasizes that both biological and social factors should be considered when examining human orientation. Social acceptance or rejection may affect a person's confidence, self-image, and mental health, which in turn may influence whether individuals openly express or conceal aspects of their identity. For this reason, social factors are often more closely associated with identity expression rather than the formation of orientation itself. Trauma theories at various points in the history of psychology. Some theories suggested that certain behavioral patterns or attractions might be associated with traumatic experiences. Trauma-related theories propose that severe emotional stress, abuse, or interpersonal conflict during childhood or adolescence might influence personality development and relationship patterns. However, modern psychiatry emphasizes that trauma cannot be considered a universal cause of sexual orientation. According to the American Psychiatric Association, traumatic experiences may affect mental health outcomes in some individuals, but there is no scientific basis for concluding that sexual orientation itself is caused by trauma. Research has shown that traumatic experiences may occur among both heterosexual and homosexual individuals. Therefore, a direct causal relationship between trauma and sexual orientation has not been established. The modern clinical approach is therefore to treat trauma-related conditions such as anxiety, depression, or relationship difficulties without assuming that sexual orientation itself represents a pathological condition. Minority stress in contemporary psychology. Minority stress is an important concept. Minority stress refers to the psychological pressure experienced by individuals who belong to socially marginalized or minority groups. According to the World Health Organization, factors such as discrimination, rejection, stigma, and social pressure may significantly affect mental health. Research studies have observed that some lesbian individuals may report higher rates of depression or anxiety. However, modern research often attributes these patterns to social stresses rather than to sexual orientation itself. Minority stress may involve experiences such as fear of rejection, family pressure, social criticism, isolation, identity-related conflict. The American Psychiatric Association notes that persistent stress of this kind can negatively affect mental health regardless of an individual's orientation. For this reason, modern psychiatry distinguishes between two important issues: the presence of a sexual orientation and the psychological impact of social stress and environmental pressures. The purpose of a deep psychological analysis of lesbian orientation is therefore not to reduce human behavior to a single explanation. Instead, it aims to understand human development by considering developmental history, social environment, personal experiences, and stress-related influences together. Gay, male homosexuality, full scientific discussion. After understanding the sexual orientation spectrum, we can now examine male homosexuality from a scientific and clinical perspective. In modern psychiatry, the term gay refers to a man who experiences emotional or physical attraction toward other men. According to the American Psychiatric Association, sexual orientation may represent one aspect of human personality, and understanding it requires examining biological, psychological, and social dimensions together. Scientific research on male homosexuality often explores several areas including brain studies, hormonal influences, identity formation, and the distinction between myths and scientific evidence. Male brain studies within neurobiology. Researchers have conducted studies to explore whether differences may exist in brain structure or neural activity among individuals. Some brain studies have examined regions associated with emotion, attraction, and behavioral regulation. In certain studies, researchers observed that patterns of brain activity may vary among individuals. However, modern neuroscience emphasizes that such differences are not consistent across all individuals and may vary widely. According to the World Health Organization, brain development is influenced by a combination of genetic factors, hormonal systems, and environmental experiences. For this reason, brain structure alone is not considered a definitive explanation for sexual orientation. Instead, it is regarded as one possible biological factor among many. Modern research also shows that the brain can change over time through learning, experiences, and environmental interaction. which is why brain studies are typically interpreted alongside other developmental influences. Hormones in endocrinology. Hormones play an important role in human development. Hormones such as testosterone and other androgens influence aspects of male physical and neurological development. Some studies have explored the potential influence of prenatal hormones, meaning hormonal exposure before birth. These theories suggest that variations in hormone levels during prenatal development could influence certain aspects of brain maturation, which might later affect behavioral patterns. However, according to the American Psychiatric Association, hormonal influences alone cannot fully explain sexual orientation. Modern psychiatry considers sexual orientation to be a complex trait that may involve interactions among hormonal influences, brain development, genetic factors, and environmental experiences. For this reason, hormones are viewed as one possible contributing factor rather than a single determining cause. Identity formation refers to the process through which individuals come to understand themselves and define aspects of their personal identity. In psychology, identity is understood as a developmental process that unfolds over time rather than emerging suddenly. Different stages of life may influence identity formation, including childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, social experiences. Some individuals become aware of their sexual orientation at an early stage, while others may recognize or articulate it later in life. Modern psychology suggests that identity formation may involve several elements, including self-awareness, social environment, family reactions, personal experiences, emotional development. According to the American Psychiatric Association, identity and behavior are not always identical, and individuals may express or understand their experiences in different ways. For this reason, modern psychiatry places strong emphasis on individual differences in developmental pathways. Myth vs. research. Male homosexuality has historically been surrounded by numerous social misconceptions. One important goal of scientific research is to clarify the difference between popular myths and empirical evidence. Some common myths have included claims that homosexuality is merely a habit. It results solely from social influence. It represents a mental illness. It is caused exclusively by childhood experiences. Modern scientific research does not support these simplified explanations. Both the World Health Organization and the American Psychiatric Association describe sexual orientation as a complex human characteristic. Research indicates that multiple influences may contribute, including biological factors, psychological factors, social influences, life experiences. Modern psychiatry therefore follows several guiding principles. Each individual should be understood as unique. Conclusions should be based on scientific evidence. Assumptions should not be made without research support. The purpose of a scientific discussion of male homosexuality is not to label individuals, but rather to understand human behavior through research, clinical observation, and evidence-based knowledge. Gay, mental health, and relationships. After examining the biological and psychological dimensions of male homosexuality, we can now explore the topics of mental health and relationships from a scientific perspective. According to modern psychiatry, sexual orientation itself is not a mental illness. However, some individuals may experience mental health challenges due to social circumstances, external pressures, or personal experiences. The American Psychiatric Association emphasizes that when evaluating mental health concerns, clinicians must consider whether difficulties arise from personality factors, environmental conditions, stress, or social reactions. Similarly, the World Health Organization notes that social acceptance, relationship stability, and emotional support can have a significant impact on mental well-being. For this reason, Discussions in this area often examine depression, addiction, relationship patterns, and the psychological effects of stigma. Depression research studies have observed that some gay individuals may report higher rates of depression compared with the general population. However, modern psychiatry emphasizes that this does not mean that sexual orientation itself causes depression. In many cases, depressive symptoms are associated with external stresses such as social rejection, family conflict, fear of judgment, social isolation, identity-related stress, according to the American Psychiatric Association. Prolonged exposure to psychological stress may contribute to the development of mood disorders. Common symptoms of depression may include persistent sadness, loss of interest in previously enjoyable activities, sleep disturbances, reduced self-confidence, fatigue, feelings of hopelessness in modern clinical practice. Treatment for depression focuses on reducing psychological stress and addressing emotional difficulties rather than attempting to alter a person's sexual orientation. Addiction. Some studies have also suggested that certain individuals may face an elevated risk of addiction, particularly when they experience chronic stress, rejection, or emotional distress. Addictive behaviors may involve alcohol misuse, substance use, behavioral addictions. Modern psychiatry often interprets addiction as a coping mechanism, meaning that individuals may turn to substances or behaviors in an attempt to manage psychological distress. According to the World Health Organization, addiction is more strongly associated with stress, trauma, and emotional difficulties than with sexual orientation itself. Therefore, treatment typically focuses on stress management, psychological counseling, and strengthening social support systems. Relationship patterns. From the perspective of relationship psychology, the fundamental principles governing same-sex relationships and opposite-sex relationships are largely similar. Healthy relationships typically involve key elements such as communication, trust, mutual respect, emotional support. Research indicates that relationship difficulties often arise from common interpersonal issues such as misunderstandings, jealousy, dependency, fear of loss, lack of affective communication. The American Psychiatric Association notes that relationship satisfaction is more strongly associated with personality traits, emotional maturity, and communication skills than with sexual orientation itself. In some cases, identity-related stress may place additional strain on relationships, particularly when social or family acceptance is limited. Modern therapeutic approaches often emphasize couples counseling and communication skills training to support healthier relationship dynamics. Stigma effects. Stigma refers to social disapproval or negative attitudes directed toward a particular group or identity. When individuals perceive that society does not fully accept them, this perception can affect their psychological well-being. Research has identified several potential mental health consequences associated with stigma, including anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, social isolation, fear of rejection. According to the World Health Organization, discrimination and persistent social pressure can increase the risk of mental health difficulties. Modern psychology often describes this phenomenon using the concept of minority stress, referring to the psychological burden experienced by individuals who belong to socially marginalized groups. The American Psychiatric Association notes that higher levels of stigma may increase the likelihood of anxiety and depressive symptoms, which is why mental health care frequently emphasizes supportive counseling, access to resources, and the creation of safe and accepting environments. Understanding gay mental health and relationships requires recognizing that human behavior cannot be explained through overly simple assumptions. Instead, it should be examined through the combined influence of psychological, social, and emotional factors, allowing for a more comprehensive and scientifically informed understanding of human experience. Be bisexual full scientific analysis within the sexual orientation spectrum. Understanding bisexuality requires examining several scientific dimensions such as dual attraction, sexual fluidity, identity development, and empirical research data. In modern psychiatry, bisexual orientation refers to individuals who may experience emotional or physical attraction toward both men and women. According to the American Psychiatric Association, bisexuality is considered a natural variation of human sexual orientation, and it is not classified as a disorder or abnormal behavior. Similarly, the World Health Organization describes sexual orientation as existing along a spectrum, within which bisexual individuals represent an important part of human diversity. Dual attraction. One of the central characteristics associated with bisexuality is dual attraction, meaning attraction toward more than one gender. This attraction does not necessarily occur in equal proportions. Some individuals may feel a stronger attraction toward one gender, while others may experience a more balanced attraction to both. Modern psychology explains that dual attraction can be influenced by multiple interacting factors, including biological influences, hormonal development, psychological experiences, social environment. Because of this complexity, researchers emphasize that bisexual attraction should not automatically be interpreted as temporary or simply confusion. For many individuals, it represents a genuine and stable form of orientation and identity expression. Sexual fluidity refers to the possibility that patterns of attraction may shift or evolve over time for some individuals. Research has shown that while many people experience relatively stable sexual orientation across their lives, others may notice changes in attraction or romantic interest during different life stages. Fluidity, therefore, suggests that attraction may be dynamic rather than completely fixed for some individuals. According to the World Health Organization, sexual fluidity is recognized as a scientifically observed aspect of human behavior, and it reflects the broader complexity of human identity rather than contradicting it. Confusion with identity during the early stages of self-awareness. Some individuals may experience confusion about their feelings, especially when attraction appears to involve more than one gender. Modern psychiatry distinguishes between temporary uncertainty and established identity. Confusion may arise from several factors, including social expectations or pressure, limited information, or education. Personal reflection during identity development. Identity formation, on the other hand, involves the process through which individuals gradually understand their own attractions, emotions, and relational patterns. The American Psychiatric Association notes that periods of uncertainty should not be viewed negatively. Rather, they can be a natural part of self-discovery and personal development. Research data bisexuality has been examined in numerous scientific studies focusing on biological, psychological, and social influences. Research findings suggest that multiple factors may play a role. Biological factors, genetics, and prenatal hormonal influences may contribute to patterns of attraction. Psychological factors, self-awareness, emotional development, and personal experiences can influence identity formation. Social factors, acceptance, stigma, and cultural attitudes may affect how individuals express or disclose their identity. Modern research also indicates that mental health challenges reported among some bisexual individuals are often associated with social stress, stigma, or lack of acceptance rather than with bisexual orientation itself. Both the American Psychiatric Association and the World Health Organization recognize bisexuality as a natural aspect of human diversity that should be understood through scientific, clinical, and social perspectives. Conclusion: A comprehensive scientific understanding of bisexuality involves examining dual attraction, sexual fluidity, identity formation, and evidence-based research together. Rather than relying on simplified assumptions, modern psychology emphasizes a multifactorial approach, acknowledging that human sexuality is shaped by a complex interaction of biological development, psychological processes, and social experiences. Bisexual psychology deep discussion. After understanding bisexual orientation, it is important to examine its psychological dimensions in greater detail. Modern psychiatry explains that bisexual psychology involves the psychological and social factors that influence identity development, mental health, and relationships. According to the American Psychiatric Association, some psychological challenges may appear more frequently among bisexual individuals, but these challenges generally arise from social and emotional contexts rather than from the orientation itself. Similarly, the World Health Organization highlights that understanding mental health and social well-being requires recognizing that bisexual individuals may encounter unique social stresses in many societies. Social rejection. Social rejection refers to negative reactions or lack of acceptance that a person may experience from family members, communities, or broader society when their sexual orientation is not accepted. Research indicates that bisexual individuals sometimes face difficulties gaining acceptance in both heterosexual and homosexual communities, which may lead to feelings of marginalization. Possible psychological effects of social rejection include low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, social isolation. The World Health Organization emphasizes that acceptance and supportive environments are extremely important for maintaining good mental health and emotional stability. Relationship stress. Bisexual individuals may experience certain unique relationship challenges, particularly in environments where stigma or misunderstanding exists. Sources of relationship stress may include jealousy or mistrust due to misunderstandings about dual attraction, difficulty disclosing bisexual identity to partners, societal pressure influencing relationship choices. According to the American Psychiatric Association, relationship patterns among bisexual individuals are fundamentally similar to those in the general population. However, social stress and identity-related pressures can sometimes create additional challenges. Modern therapeutic approaches often include couples counseling and identity-affirming support to help individuals and partners manage these stresses more effectively. Mental health risk. Some research studies suggest that bisexual individuals may experience slightly higher rates of certain mental health concerns, such as depression, anxiety disorder, substance use risk. However, modern psychiatry clearly states that these risks are usually linked to social stigma, discrimination, and chronic stress, rather than bisexual orientation itself. The World Health Organization emphasizes the importance of mental health support systems, safe social environments, and access to counseling services to improve overall well-being. Identity conflict. Identity conflict can occur when a person's internal sense of self conflicts with societal expectations, cultural norms, or community attitudes. Some bisexual individuals may feel that they are not fully accepted within either heterosexual or homosexual communities, which can contribute to internal tension. Possible effects of identity conflict include confusion about personal identity, anxiety, or psychological stress, difficulty expressing one's authentic self. The American Psychiatric Association explains that such identity conflict can be a normal phase of identity development, particularly when individuals are still exploring or understanding their orientation. Modern psychological therapy often focuses on identity support, counseling, and emotional validation, which can help individuals reduce internal conflict and improve mental health outcomes. Conclusion: the purpose of a deep discussion of bisexual psychology is to understand how social, emotional, and psychological contexts interact with sexual orientation. Rather than viewing orientation in isolation, modern scientific perspectives emphasize examining the combined influence of social acceptance, identity development, emotional experiences, and mental health factors, allowing for a more accurate and compassionate understanding of human behavior. Transgender basics understanding. Transgender individuals begins with the concept of gender identity, which is considered the most fundamental element in modern psychology and sexology. According to modern psychiatry, a transgender person is someone whose gender identity differs from the sex assigned at birth. The American Psychiatric Association explains that gender identity is a person's internal sense of being male, female, both, or another gender. This sense of identity is deeply personal and subjective. Similarly, the World Health Organization recognizes transgender identity as a natural variation within human diversity and does not consider it pathological unless the individual experiences significant distress, often referred to as gender dysphoria. Gender identity refers to how a person internally understands and experiences their gender. A person may identify as male, female, both, neither. Another gender identity does not always align with biological sex characteristics such as chromosomes, reproductive anatomy, or hormones. Some individuals may experience a difference between their physical sex traits and their internal sense of gender. Modern research suggests that gender identity is a complex human trait influenced by multiple factors, including biological influences, psychological development, social and cultural context. According to the American Psychiatric Association, understanding a person's gender identity involves considering their self-expression, lived experiences, and self-perception. Gender dysphoria refers to the psychological distress that may occur when there is a significant mismatch between a person's assigned sex at birth and their experienced gender identity. Common experiences associated with gender dysphoria may include persistent discomfort with one's assigned sex, a strong desire to live as the experienced gender emotional distress, or anxiety related to sex characteristics. The World Health Organization recognizes gender dysphoria as a clinically identifiable condition for which evidence-based assessment and treatment guidelines exist. Modern psychiatry does not classify transgender identity itself as a mental disorder. Instead, the clinical focus is on addressing the distress that some individuals may experience. DSM-5 diagnosis in the diagnostic framework of the American Psychiatric Association. Transgender-related clinical diagnosis falls under the category of gender dysphoria in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5. Diagnostic criteria generally include a marked incongruence between experienced gender and assigned sex, significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or daily functioning, a duration of symptoms typically lasting at least 6 months. The purpose of this diagnostic framework is not to label gender identity as a disorder, but to ensure that individuals experiencing distress can receive appropriate psychological and medical support. Transition types. Transition refers to the process through which transgender individuals align aspects of their lives with their gender identity. Transition can occur in different ways, and not every person chooses or needs every form. Common forms of transition include social transition, changes in name, pronouns, clothing, and social presentation. Medical transition, hormone therapy such as estrogen or testosterone, used to develop physical characteristics aligned with gender identity. Surgical transition, gender-affirming surgeries that alter certain physical characteristics. Legal transition, updating official documents such as identification or legal records to reflect gender identity. According to the World Health Organization, transition pathways are highly individualized and voluntary, meaning each person may choose the steps that best align with their needs and well-being. Modern psychiatry and sexology consider supportive care and appropriate transition options important because they may help reduce gender dysphoria and improve mental health outcomes. Conclusion: the scientific discussion of transgender basics aims to provide a clinical and evidence-based understanding of gender identity and related experiences. By examining concepts such as gender identity, gender dysphoria, diagnostic frameworks, and transition pathways, researchers and clinicians seek to better understand the diversity of human experiences and support individuals in achieving psychological well-being and identity alignment. Transgender medical science model. Medical science provides evidence-based interventions for transgender individuals, aiming not only for physical transformation but also for mental well-being and reduction of gender dysphoria. According to the American Psychiatric Association, transgender medical care should be individualized and clinically supervised, while the World Health Organization emphasizes that medically supervised transition is a natural part of human diversity and must follow proper clinical standards. Hormone therapy, HARTAL. Hormone therapy involves administering estrogen or testosterone to help align an individual's physical characteristics with their gender identity. Male to female, estrogen, female to male. STMRA, testosterone effects of hormone therapy include development of secondary sex characteristics, changes in voice, hair distribution, body fat and muscle mass, emotional and mood stabilization. The World Health Organization recommends that heart is monitored by an endocrinologist to ensure safety and maximize desired outcomes. Gender-affirming surgery. Gender-affirming surgeries modify physical characteristics to reflect an individual's gender identity. Common surgeries include chest top surgery, genital reconstruction surgery, facial feminization or masculinization surgery. The American Psychiatric Association emphasizes that all surgeries should be voluntary, based on informed consent, and performed under the guidance of a multidisciplinary care team. Puberty blockers. Puberty blockers are temporary interventions that delay unwanted puberty characteristics in transgender youth. They are reversible, provide time for young individuals to explore and understand their gender identity, can improve mental health outcomes. The World Health Organization stresses that puberty blockers should be used following evidence-based protocols to prevent negative effects on growth and development. Endocrinology. In transgender care, endocrinology plays a central role in medical transition by monitoring hormone levels, ensuring safe dosing and therapy adjustments, providing long-term follow-up for metabolic, cardiovascular, and bone health. The American Psychiatric Association notes that endocrinologists are critical in minimizing medical risks and ensuring physical changes match the patient's goals. Conclusion: transgender medical science combines hormone therapy, surgery, puberty blockers, and endocrinology to provide safe, individualized, and evidence-based care. The overall goal is to support mental health and emotional well-being, alignment of physical appearance with gender identity, long-term health, and safety. This clinical approach ensures that gender-affirming care is both scientific and person-centered, promoting identity congruence and quality of life for transgender individuals. Transgender psychology and social life, understanding the psychological and social aspects of transgender individuals is essential, as gender identity affects not just medical transition but also daily life, mental health, and social interactions. According to the American Psychiatric Association, transgender psychology includes factors that influence mental health, coping skills, and social adaptation, while the World Health Organization highlights the importance of a supportive social environment for overall well-being. Family reaction, family response is a fundamental factor in the life of transgender individuals. Acceptance is linked with positive outcomes such as reduced anxiety and depression. Rejection or hostility can increase minority stress and internalized stigma. The World Health Organization notes that family support significantly improves mental health outcomes, and counseling interventions can enhance acceptance and coping. School issues. Transgender youth often face challenges in educational settings, including bullying or harassment, misgendering or incorrect name pronoun use, exclusion from activities or facilities. Negative effects on academic performance. Research indicates that safe and inclusive school policies improve mental health and academic outcomes. The American Psychiatric Association recommends awareness programs and inclusive practices in schools to support transgender well-being. Workplace issues. Transgender adults encounter social and professional challenges at work, such as discrimination or bias in hiring and promotion, misgendering or lack of recognition of identity, harassment or hostile work environment. The World Health Organization emphasizes that inclusive workplace policies and diversity training can reduce mental health risks and increase productivity. Modern psychology stresses that social acceptance and identity validation are critical for mental well-being. Discrimination and minority stress. Discrimination stress or minority stress is a key psychological factor affecting transgender individuals. Social stigma and prejudice create chronic stress, which may contribute to depression and anxiety. Substance use, relationship difficulties. Effective coping mechanisms include support groups, counseling, and community engagement. The American Psychiatric Association highlights that the effects of discrimination stress extend beyond mental health, potentially impacting physical health and overall quality of life. Conclusion. Transgender psychology and social life are influenced by individual, family, and societal factors. A scientific and evidence-based perspective shows that supportive family, school, and workplace environments are crucial. Inclusive policies and social acceptance improve mental health outcomes. Coping strategies and community support reduce the impact of discrimination. This holistic approach ensures well-being, identity validation, and social inclusion for transgender individuals. Queer. Questioning evidence-based perspective. Queer and questioning individuals are those who are exploring their sexual orientation or gender identity or do not fully fit into traditional categories. Modern psychology considers identity exploration to be a normal developmental process, particularly during adolescence. The American Psychiatric Association emphasizes that experiencing a questioning or queer identity is part of self-discovery and should not be considered confusion or a disorder. The World Health Organization notes that a supportive environment facilitates healthy identity formation in youth. Identity exploration. During identity exploration, adolescents reflect on and experiment with different sexual orientations and gender identities. Self-reflection and peer interaction help youth understand their preferences and sense of self. Curiosity and experimentation are developmentally normal. Research shows that supportive peers and inclusive social settings significantly enhance healthy identity formation. Teenage confusion. During teenage years, queer and questioning youth may experience confusion, including uncertainty about feelings and attractions, fear of social rejection, or bullying, pressure to conform to societal norms. According to the American Psychiatric Association, teenage confusion is a normal phase, often leading to increased self-awareness and clarity in identity. Social influence. Social context plays a critical role in identity exploration. Friends and peer groups, school environment, family expectations, media exposure. Research demonstrates that positive social influence fosters acceptance and self-esteem, while negative feedback or rejection can increase mental health risks. Internet culture, TikTok, YouTube, online platforms provide adolescents with information, community, and support. Platforms like TikTok and YouTube educate youth about diverse identities. Online communities and content creators assist in identity validation and self-expression. Research indicates that moderated online spaces contribute to social support and the development of coping strategies. The World Health Organization supports the use of supportive, moderated digital spaces for mental health and identity development. Conclusion. The study of queer and questioning identities provides an evidence-based understanding of adolescent identity exploration, social challenges, and online influence. Proper supportive environments, inclusive peers, and safe online spaces are crucial to promoting healthy identity formation and mental well-being in youth. Intersex medical science perspective. Intersex individuals are those whose biological sex characteristics, including chromosomes, gonads, hormones, or genitalia, do not fully align with traditional male or female categories. Modern medical science approaches intersex conditions through genetics, pediatrics, and endocrinology. According to the American Psychiatric Association, intersex variations are a natural part of human diversity and arise from multiple biological developmental pathways. The World Health Organization emphasizes that intersex conditions require clinically managed, patient-centered care to support both physical and psychological well-being. Chromosomal variations. Chromosomes play a fundamental role in sex determination. XX typical female, XY typical male variations such as XXI, XY-XO, and other atypical karyotypes can result in intersex conditions. Chromosomal differences may affect physical development, hormone levels, and reproductive structures. Axoid-Klinefelter syndrome, predominantly male physical characteristics with some differences, hormonal imbalance. Typically, low testosterone, possible infertility, cognitive, social, or emotional challenges. In some cases, medical management may include hormone replacement therapy, educational support, and fertility counseling. Zor-Turner syndrome, female characteristics, short stature, ovarian insufficiency or infertility, cardiac or renal anomalies, in some cases managed through pediatric care, growth hormone therapy, and estrogen replacement to normalize development. Androgen insensitivity syndrome, ISA. Bias occurs when a genetic male has cells that do not properly respond to androgens. Complete IAS, externally female appearance, partial ambiguous genitalia, male typical hormone levels, but female typical or intermediate physical expression management requires endocrine monitoring, medical intervention, and psychological support. Disorders of sex development. These conditions encompass a broad range of intersex variations, chromosomal, gonadal, and hormonal variations. Ambiguous genitalia or atypical development require multidisciplinary management. Pediatrics, endocrinology, surgery. World Health Organization highlights that patient-centered care improves both physical health and mental well-being. Genetics, pediatrics, and endocrinology. Genetics, study of chromosomal and gene-level variations, including STRI of sex-linked gene anomalies. Pediatrics, early diagnosis, growth monitoring and developmental support. Endocrinology, hormone replacement, puberty management, and long-term metabolic follow-up. The American Psychiatric Association emphasizes that intersex medical care is not only about physical intervention but also holistic patient-centered support. This evidence-based discussion provides a scientific and clinical perspective on intersex medical science, highlighting chromosomal variations, DST conditions, endocrine management, and the importance of individualized patient care. Identities non-binary, asexual, pansexual, and more. Within the LGBTQI spectrum, some individuals do not fit neatly into traditional male, female, or heterosexual, homosexual categories. Modern gender theory recognizes that human identity is diverse and fluid, and each person has the right to express themselves according to their self-perception. According to the American Psychiatric Association, identities such as non-binary, gender fluid, asexual, pansexual, and agender are natural human variations and are not considered mental disorders. The World Health Organization emphasizes that an inclusive approach and validation of identity are critical for mental well-being. Non-binary individuals do not fully align with traditional male or female categories. Some identify as both male and female. Some identify as neither. Identity expression varies across individuals. Modern gender theory considers non-binary identities a significant aspect of gender diversity. Gender fluid. Gender fluid individuals experience changes in gender identity over time or across situations. Flexibility in expression and self-perception continuous process of identity exploration. Acceptance of fluidity supports mental health outcomes. The APA recognizes gender fluidity as a natural human variation and an essential part of identity exploration. Asexual individuals experience little or no sexual attraction. Emotional or romantic attraction may still be present. Lack of sexual attraction is not a disorder. Variation exists along the asexual spectrum, e.g., gray asexual, demisexual. Research indicates that asexual individuals' relationships and well-being are influenced by a socially supportive environment. Pansexual individuals may experience emotional or physical attraction regardless of gender or sex orientation. Is gender inclusive focus on emotional, romantic, or sexual connection without gender limitation part of the broader sexual diversity spectrum? The WHO recognizes pansexuality as a legitimate sexual orientation and discourages pathologization. Agender individuals do not associate their gender identity with any gender, self-identify as having no gender identity expression, may vary socially and personally. Mental health benefits from recognition and respect of identity. Modern gender theory moves beyond rigid binaries. Gender is socially constructed and fluid identity exists along a spectrum. Labels help individuals articulate and validate self-perception. According to the APA, the increasing use of identity labels enhances visibility and societal acceptance, which benefits mental health and fosters community support. Identity labels and their role. Increasing number of labels reflects human diversity, provides language for self-expression, helps build inclusive communities, reduces minority stress by validating experiences. The WHO emphasizes that identity labels empower individuals and provide avenues for social recognition, support, and psychological well-being. This discussion provides a scientific and evidence-based perspective on identities such as non-binary, gender fluid, asexual, pansexual, agender, and other diverse identities, establishing a framework for an inclusive and supportive society. LGBTQ mental health. Understanding the mental health of LGBTQ individuals is critical because social stigma, discrimination, and minority stress often have direct impacts on mental well-being. According to the American Psychiatric Association, LGBTQ mental health should not be attributed solely to sexual orientation or gender identity, but rather considered within the context of social, environmental, and psychological factors. The World Health Organization emphasizes that evidence-based interventions and supportive care are essential for maintaining mental well-being in LGBTQ populations. Suicide statistics research indicates that LGBTQ individuals may have an elevated risk of suicide compared to the general population. Youth LGBTQ populations exhibit higher rates of suicidal ideation, family rejection, bullying, and social exclusion. Increased suicide risk, early intervention, and counseling can reduce suicidal behaviors. The WHO recommends that suicide prevention strategies include inclusive support networks and accessible mental health care. Anxiety disorders in LGBTQ individuals are often linked to minority stress and societal stigma, chronic worry and tension, social anxiety due to fear of judgment, identity-related stress. According to the APA, effective anxiety management may include cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, mindfulness, and supportive counseling. Trauma effects can be more pronounced in LGBTQ populations due to physical or emotional abuse, discrimination, and harassment, internalized stigma, with long-term psychological impact. Trauma-informed care should be incorporated into mental health interventions to mitigate the effects of past experiences. The WHO highlights that trauma-focused therapy and safe support systems promote recovery and resilience. Therapy needs LGBTQ mental health care requires a tailored approach depending on the individual's needs, identity affirmation, coping with minority stress, management of anxiety and depression, trauma recovery, relationship and social support counseling. Modern counseling emphasizes individualized care, culturally competent therapy, and evidence-based interventions. Minority stress theory explains that LGBTQ individuals face chronic social stress, stigma, discrimination, and rejection negatively affect mental health outcomes. Stresses can increase risk of suicide, anxiety, and depression. The APA emphasizes that awareness and social support are crucial in mitigating the effects of minority stress. Counseling models. Several counseling models are applied to LGBTQ mental health. Affirmative therapy focuses on identity validation and acceptance. Cognitive behavioral therapy (CBTQ4) for anxiety and depression management. Trauma-informed therapy reduces the impact of past trauma, family, and community. Based interventions develop social support and coping skills. The WHO stresses that LGBTQ-friendly counseling and accessible mental health care are essential to effectively address minority stress, trauma, and mental health risks. This discussion provides a scientific and evidence-based perspective on LGBTQ mental health, addressing risk factors, therapy needs, and counseling strategies to enable inclusive and supportive care for the population. Therapy and treatment approaches for LGBTQ individuals. Therapy and treatment for LGBTQ individuals are evidence-based, supportive, and client-centered. Modern psychiatry recognizes that sexual orientation or gender identity is not a disorder. Rather, therapy addresses related stress, mental health challenges, and relationship issues. The American Psychiatric Association emphasizes that individualized clinical approaches and culturally competent care improve mental health outcomes. According to the World Health Organization, the goals of therapy include patient empowerment, identity affirmation, and holistic well-being. Cognitive behavioral therapy (CBTC) is a structured evidence-based therapy designed to modify negative thoughts and behaviors, management of anxiety and depression, development of coping skills, reduction of minority stress effects, practical strategies for identity-related challenges. Modern psychiatry applies CBT as an LGBTQ-friendly intervention to enhance mental health outcomes. Psychotherapy provides individual or group sessions for emotional support and self-exploration. enhances self-awareness and personal growth processes. Trauma and past experiences develop stress management and coping strategies according to the APA. Psychotherapy offers safe and confidential spaces that improve therapeutic outcomes for LGBTQ clients. Sex therapy. Sex therapy addresses sexual functioning, intimacy, and relationship concerns, sexual orientation and identity acceptance guidance on relationship challenges, recovery from performance anxiety, or sexual trauma, enhancement of pleasure, intimacy, and communication, specially tailored. Interventions improve sexual well-being and mental health. Family therapy. Family therapy strengthens family dynamics and social support systems, promotes family acceptance and understanding, bridges communication gaps, develops conflict resolution and support strategies, reduces effects of minority stress. The WHO highlights that family involvement is critical to LGBT mental health outcomes. Supportive therapy. Supportive therapy provides emotional reassurance, coping strategies, and validation, enables identity expression in a safe environment, strengthens social support and self-esteem, reduces stress, and builds resilience. Modern clinical practice considers supportive therapy foundational for LGBTQ clients. Clinical approach. As a psychiatrist providing LGBTQ care follows a holistic approach, comprehensive assessment of mental health needs, identity-affirming care, evidence-based interventions, CBT, psychotherapy, sex therapy, integration of family and social support, ongoing monitoring, and individualized treatment planning. Both APA and WHO endorse a holistic, affirming, and evidence-based psychiatric approach to optimize mental well-being for LGBTQ individuals. This discussion provides a scientific and clinical perspective on therapy approaches for LGBTQ clients, emphasizing CBT, psychotherapy, sex therapy, family therapy, and supportive therapy as essential components of individualized evidence-based care. Society, law and culture. Use of perspective. Understanding society, law and culture is essential for LGBTQ individuals because legal protections, marriage rights, workplace policies, and educational inclusion directly affect their lives and mental health. According to the American Psychiatric Association, an inclusive society and supportive laws are critical for the well-being of the LGBTQ population. The World Health Organization emphasizes that human rights laws and anti-discrimination policies improve mental health and social acceptance. Use laws in the United States. LGBTQ rights have gradually expanded, with federal and state level laws providing protections, anti-discrimination laws in employment, housing, and public services, hate crime legislation, including LGBTQ protection, healthcare access, and insurance coverage protections. Research indicates that legal recognition and protection help reduce minority stress among LGBTQ individuals. Marriage laws. Following nationwide legalization in 2015, marriage equality provides LGBTQ couples with equal marriage rights and legal recognition, adoption and parental rights, access to health insurance and spousal benefits. Legal marriage protections contribute to social stability and mental health. For LGBTQ families, workplace rights. Workplace rights ensure protection from discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, inclusive HR policies and diversity training, equal pay, promotion opportunities, and harassment-free environment. The WHO notes that inclusive workplace practices improve LGBTQ mental well-being and professional growth. Full education for LGBTQ youth. Inclusive educational policies are essential. Anti-bullying policies and safe spaces. Inclusive curriculum covering LGBT history and issues, supportive staff and counselors, equal participation in activities and facilities. Research demonstrates that safe and inclusive School environments improve academic performance and mental health outcomes for LGBTQ students. Human rights laws. Human rights laws provide fundamental protection for LGBTQ individuals, right to live free from discrimination, right to express sexual orientation and gender identity, access to healthcare, education, and employment, legal mechanisms to prevent harassment and abuse, both APA and WHO. Affirm that human rights laws and societal acceptance are essential for overall well-being and social integration of LGBT individuals. This discussion provides a scientific, legal, and evidence-based perspective on society, law, and culture in the USA, highlighting the importance of marriage, workplace, school, and human rights laws in creating an inclusive environment for LGBTQ individuals. Future of gender and sexuality. The trajectory of gender and sexual diversity is rapidly evolving due to social, scientific, and cultural changes. According to American Psychiatric Association, understanding of gender and sexuality continues to expand, providing evidence-based knowledge essential for future mental health interventions and policymaking. The World Health Organization emphasizes that scientific research and public awareness initiatives play a crucial role in LGBT well-being and social integration. Modern trends, current trends indicate increasing visibility and acceptance of diverse identities, greater recognition of non-binary, gender-fluid, pansexual, and other identities, expansion of inclusive healthcare, counseling, and educational support, emphasis on intersectionality including race, class, disability, and culture in LGBTQ research, evolving legal protections, and human rights recognition. These trends suggest that society is becoming more inclusive, reducing the negative effects of minority stress and discrimination. Social media impact. Social media platforms have transformed LGBTQ discourse by providing accessible platforms for awareness and education, facilitating community building and peer support networks, allowing content creators and influencers to play a role in identity validation. However, risks include misinformation, cyberbullying, and identity-based harassment. The WHO recommends moderated social media environments and evidence-based content as beneficial for LGBTQ mental health and identity exploration. New identities. The future of sexual and gender identities shows further diversification, increased recognition of fluid, non-binary, and hybrid identities, expansion of identity labels to articulate self-perception accurately, academic and clinical discourse reflecting evolving identities research indicates that awareness and social acceptance provide a psychologically supportive environment for these new identities. Scientific debates. Ongoing scientific debates address biological vs social determinants of gender and sexual orientation, roles of neurobiology, genetics, endocrinology, and psychosocial factors, ethical considerations in medical interventions, in transition care, evidence-based approaches vs societal norms. According to APA, these debates ensure that future policies, clinical practices, and mental health strategies are safe, effective, and inclusive for LGBTQ populations. Final expert opinion. Understanding of gender and sexuality is continuously evolving. Identity, diversity, and inclusion are critical for mental health, social justice, and professional education. Scientific, evidence-based, and human rights-centered approaches are essential for the future of LGBTQ care and social integration. Ending message. This series has been created for scientific understanding, mental health awareness, and professional education. The goal is to provide evidence-based knowledge to foster societal acceptance, supportive care, and informed decisions. If you are new to our channel IMARHKMI, please subscribe and click the notification bell to stay updated with our upcoming vlogs. If you found this vlog helpful, kindly like and share it so that more people can benefit from scientific, evidence-based, and mental health resources. For further contact or questions, use the links in the description to reach our website or official Facebook page. Stay connected with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble. We will meet again with our next vlog. Until then, goodbye.